A game that really did matter. Green Bay Packers 17, Bears 9. Packers move to 9-8, go to the playoffs. Playoffs, baby. Jordan Love, another incredible game, man. 27 of 32 for 316, 2 touchdowns. The only thing that really made this somewhat close, and only 17 points for the Packers in a game where your quarterback dominated. Aaron Jones goes 22 carries for 111 yards. How did that happen? Packers miss a field goal early on, and then at the end of the half, throw a pass outside the numbers, don't get out of bounds, left it more points on the table. So Packers move the ball extremely well here, and Jordan Love, man, just keeps doing it, just keeps throwing the ball. Just incredible accuracy. Whether he's throwing balanced, off balance, doesn't matter. Unreal what Jordan Love has done the second half of the season.
Yeah, he was absolutely dialed in again. I don't know if there's another quarterback that gets into that zone better than Jordan Love. Like when he's on, he's absolutely amazing. But then we have had these runs this year where it's fallen apart again. He's kind of regressed and gone backwards a bit. I don't know if you just look at that in the whole and say, I think Kirk Cousins described it as like a stock market, where the days go up and down but you just look at the broad trend line and see where that's going. Like the broad trend line for Jordan Love is headed in the right direction pretty quickly, and it's a pretty strong line upwards, like the line of best fit or whatever. It's just that on a game-to-game basis, it can bounce all over the place a bit.
I think at some point in our hundreds of hours, thousands of hours of talking to each other, I've compared that streakiness to Josh Allen, right? I mean, Josh Allen, even when he started to become a star, when he got it, it was like, man, the best of Josh Allen is out of this world, but he couldn't always keep it going. The best of Jordan Love really is incredible. And we've looked at this historically through the years. Dak Prescott this year has 5 games at 90 plus PFF grade and 3 in the 40s. That is as volatile as it gets. I don't know if Love is different here because I think he wasn't great on Monday Night Football against the Giants in Week 14. Was pretty good against the Bucs in Week 15, but it wasn't like these other games. But the games where he's been on, Thanksgiving against the Lions, Sunday Night Football against the Chiefs, Sunday Night Football against the Vikings, yesterday against the Bears, when he has been on, the feel, the touch, the vision in the field, and then just the accuracy, man. The accuracy for a guy early in the season who was missing so many throws. It's been like night and day for Jordan Love. When he is on, it is unbelievably on. I mean, I've said that about Stafford through the years. There might be, because Love is everything. Every time Jordan Love does anything good, anything, like, oh, that reminds Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers. This might be Stafford. It might actually be Matthew Stafford, where the very best of Matthew Stafford for years, I've said this 1,000 times on this show, the very best of Matthew Stafford showed up 3 or 4 times a year, and it was spectacular. It was unbelievable. But it was really only 3 or 4 times a year. The rest of it was good. Right now, is that what Love is going to be? The 3 or 4 times that he shows up, it is out of this world, and the rest of it will be fine. But when he is on, Jordan Love looks as good as any other quarterback in the NFL the way he plays.
You know the way you don't look at like box score numbers anymore, generally?
Yeah.
You know who leads the NFL in touchdown passes?
I know it's Dak and then Love. I did look at that recently.
Dak and then Love.
Yeah.
Like Jordan Love is second in the NFL in touchdown
Love
passes.
leaped Purdy, missed yesterday. No, because I tried to engagement tweet that the other night. Tried to just farm in those. It probably earned a good 75 cents.
Yeah.
That tweet.
Wow.
Good 75 cents from Elon on that one. But after the Sunday Night Football game, he was 3rd in passing touchdowns, and then Purdy sat out, and Love jumped up to 2. Yeah. I mean, way back in weeks 1 and 2, he had 6 touchdowns in 2 games. PFF grades weren't great, so what is our job is always to kind of explain that. Why is the PFF grade not great? And he's got 120 passer rating. Well, his receivers were breaking tackles, and he had a tap pass, and he had wide open passes in the flat, and he missed a bunch of stuff. Now the stats are legit for Love, and he's playing better. So again, our job is to explain that and just describe what's happening.
Yeah, and the
Jordan
accuracy.
Love's playing far better now than he was earlier in the year.
He really is. The accuracy again in this game. Like this is the thing. When he gets dialed in, when he hits that zone, when he just is feeling this is going to be a good game. Because remember, even earlier in the year when he wasn't playing great, he tended to turn it on in the second half or the fourth quarter. He would go on a stretch where it's like, oh, he's dialed in now. Like he's I don't know why it took a half of the game to get going, but now he's back and we're playing well again. It's just that like the grade wouldn't necessarily reflect it because the first half had been crappy, and so you average the two out and it's not great. But he did get into this dialed-in area repeatedly, even when he wasn't playing overall amazing. And then when he has his good games, that happens right away. And for the whole game, he's just in this zone. And, you listen to some Packers, either beat writers or sort of, just the team-based guys, and they're like, he's like that in training camp. Like he would have these games, or these days rather, where very early in training camp, you're like, oh, it's one of these days where Love's just not missing. Like we're going to be absolutely in the zone in this day. And he just hits everything. He had an adjusted completion rate of 85% effectively in this game. That's nuts. And again, like he's still working without a full deck in terms of all of his receivers. Musgrave was back in this game, didn't play much, but they still don't have Christian Watson. Like it's not all of his receivers. And yet, again, as has been the case all the way through the year, all of those young guys played well.
Jaden Reed, 4 catches for 112. Bo Melton with 5 for 62. Easily could have had a touchdown in there as well. Dontavian Wicks with the 2 touchdowns, 61 receiving yards. Tucker Kraft, it's the youngest team in the NFL, especially on the offense, not even close. And Love has done this. If you gave a veteran quarterback this receiving core and they struggled, any of them, Mahomes or Dak or Lamar or any quarterback, and you said Josh Allen, and you said, well, this is what they built around this guy? Well, of course. And it didn't work. You say it didn't work. You would say, well, of course. They invested in, Dontavian Wicks and Tucker Kraft and Jaden Reed. Of course it didn't work. Instead, Jordan Love, in his first year as a starter, took these guys, who apparently are very good, and the Packers have nailed a ton of draft picks in the last 2 years, and they've become one of the more effective offenses now, especially second half of the season.
And their offensive line has become much improved as well. Guys like Rasheed Walker has now nailed down that left tackle spot. And, he did not look like even an adequate NFL starter earlier in the year. Now he was rotating at left tackle. Now he's kind of nailed down that starting spot and looks legit. Zach Tom has already been a really good caliber player. Elton Jenkins, now you're rounding out what is a pretty good offensive line in addition to the young receiving core and Jordan Love playing out of his mind. The defense has played a lot better as well. Like for the second week in a row, Joey Barry, right on the verge of getting fired, has been like, all right, now I'll pull out all the good stuff. And they did a much better job against Fields than they did in the first game, the first time they played Chicago, and previously in the season. That's now back-to-back games where they've shown up and done really well. And you're like, where the hell was this defense for most of the year? But it all comes together, and you're like, nobody wants to play that team in the playoffs.
For Fields, just to touch on the Bears a little bit, he finishes 11 of 16 for 148, got sacked 5 times, and ran for 27 yards. Fields, likely his last start with the Bears, I would expect. Again, last week at this time, we're like, hey, they're making a decision, and it's more intriguing, and they're trending up. And I thought if they beat the Packers and knocked them out of the playoffs, it would have felt like, hey, there's a big decision to be made here. I think when you sit down though and evaluate the whole thing, even whether they had won or not, and say we're picking at 1, and there's a couple good quarterbacks on the board there, Caleb Williams, Drake May, whoever else you want to put in that mix, they're going to pick a quarterback at the end of the day. I believe they will. We'll see. Maybe they trade down and pick up 7 other picks. Who knows? But could have been the end for Fields here. 7-10 Bears, trending in the right direction. But so is the rest of the NFC North, man. Packers Lions next year is going to be. Oh man, it's going to look like a deep NFC North, especially because the Bears have draft capital, money to spend still. The Bears have a lot to improve on that team as well. So that the whole division's trending in the right direction.
It was the first game in a while where Fields didn't help his cause, I think.
Yeah.
I don't, it may not have changed anything. It's one game in his entire career, but for a while, every week, he had been making the decision more difficult for Chicago. This one at least went in the other direction, at least in terms of, making their life easier, and went in the opposite direction, and he didn't help his cause in terms of staying as the starter. The other player that deserves a shout out in this game, Aaron Jones, was fantastic. Like when he's on, he's such a good running back. Just that quickness, that speed, the elusiveness. Again, in this season where all of the top graded running backs, almost to a man, are smaller, shiftier, faster, explosive running backs, like Aaron Jones is that type of back, and when he's on, makes that offense so much better.
I just love the way the NFC matchups played out. I love that we get Stafford, Goff, Lions, Rams, and I love that we get Packers, Cowboys. So Mike McCarthy going up against his old team, the Packers, but not Aaron Rodgers. It's, upstart Jordan Love as a 7 seed going into Dallas next week in the 4 o'clock window. It's going to be fun.